Hey there, buddy. Come on in, grab a seat on the porch, or walk with me down to the garden beds. I am so incredibly excited to have you here today because what we're about to talk about is a total game changer for your backyard. If you're like me, you've probably spent many summers staring at a tomato plant that looks okay, but just isn't giving you that explosion of fruit you see in the magazines. Well, that ends today. I'm going to show you the maintenance routine, specifically the watering secret. That took my garden from average to absolutely overflowing. We are aiming for 80 tomatoes per vine, and believe me, it's easier than you think when you know the trick. Now, before we get into the heavy stuff, let's talk about the plant itself. We are focusing today on the Solanum lycopersicum, the classic garden tomato. You might hear people call them love apples or just maters depending on where you're from, but here in our backyard, we're talking about those juicy, vine-ripened beauties that taste like sunshine. A quick safety note from your garden pal: always make sure you're identifying your plants correctly. If you ever see something growing wild and you aren't 100% sure it's a tomato, don't eat it. Check with a local expert first. Let's dive into the maintenance, because this is where the magic really starts to happen. Most people think watering is just about pointing a hose at the plant until the dirt looks dark. I used to do the same thing, but if we want 80 tomatoes, we have to be smarter. The secret I discovered involves consistency and a specific nutrient boost in the water that we'll discuss more in a bit. First, let's talk about the bottom-up rule. I noticed that when I watered from the top, hitting the leaves, my plants would get sick with blight or fungus. It was heartbreaking to see all that hard work turn yellow and brown. Now, we only water the soil. We want that moisture to go deep, deep down to the roots where the plant actually drinks. Think of it like this: your tomato plant is a marathon runner, and its roots are its hydration system. You wouldn't pour water on a runner's head to quench their thirst, right? You'd give them a drink. Another huge part of the maintenance is mulching. I started using a thick layer of organic straw or shredded leaves around the base of my vines. Why? Because it keeps the soil temperature steady and holds that secret water right where the plant needs it. Without mulch, the sun bakes the ground, the water evaporates, and your plant goes into survival mode instead of fruiting mode. When a plant is in survival mode, it won't give you 80 tomatoes, it'll give you 3 and call it a day. In general, you're looking at a timeline of about 60 to 90 days from planting to that massive harvest, depending on your local weather and the specific variety you're growing. But the maintenance we do right now is what determines if that harvest is a bucketful or just a handful. I want you to imagine walking out to your garden in a few weeks, lifting up a branch, and seeing cluster after cluster of red. It's the best feeling in the world, and I'm so happy I get to share this path with you. We're going to talk about the specific mixture I add to my watering can, the stuff that actually triggers that massive fruit production. But first, we need to make sure we aren't accidentally killing our plants with the common mistakes that almost everyone makes. I made them for years, buddy, so don't feel bad. We're going to fix them together. The soil should feel like a wrung-out sponge, moist, but not a swamp. If you stick your finger 2 inches into the dirt and it's dry, it's time to give them a drink. This consistency is what prevents blossom end rot, which is that nasty black spot on the bottom of the fruit. We don't want that, we want perfection. You got this? And I'm right here with you. I know that feeling, buddy. You walk out to your garden with all the hope in the world, you've spent money on the best soil and the fancy cages, and yet, a few weeks later, you're looking at a plant that's either all leaves and no fruit, or worse, the few tomatoes you do have are splitting open or turning black on the bottom. It breaks your heart, doesn't it? I've been right there with you standing in the mud, wondering what on earth I was doing wrong. For the longest time, I thought I just didn't have a green thumb, but the truth is, most of us are taught the wrong way to look after our tomatoes. We're going to fix that right now, because once you see these failure traps, you'll never fall for them again. The biggest mistake, the one that kills more tomato dreams than anything else, is what I call the nitrogen trap. See, when we go to the store, we see those big bags of fertilizer that promise miracle growth. We put it on, and wow, the plant turns into a dark green jungle. We feel like masters of the garden. But here's the secret. If you give a tomato plant too much nitrogen, you're telling the plant, hey, just grow leaves, don't worry about babies. You end up with a 6-foot-tall bush and maybe 3 tiny tomatoes hidden inside. It's frustrating because you think you're doing a good job, because the plant looks healthy. But we aren't growing a hedge, friend, we're growing dinner. To get 80 tomatoes per vine, we have to switch our focus from growing green to growing fruit at the right time. Then there's the roller coaster watering mistake. This one used to drive me crazy. One day the soil is bone dry, so you soak it until it's a swamp. Then you forget for 2 days, and it dries out again. This back and forth is what causes your tomatoes to crack. The skin can't keep up with the sudden rush of water, and it literally bursts. It's like trying to fill a balloon too fast. And remember that black spot on the bottom I mentioned, blossom end rot? That's not a disease you can spray away. It's usually a calcium deficiency caused by, you guessed it, inconsistent watering. The plant can't move the calcium from the soil into the fruit if the water flow isn't steady. It's like trying to drive a car with a clogged fuel line. The engine is fine, but the gas just isn't getting there. I also see so many people ignoring the suckers. You know, those little shoots that grow in the armpit between the main stem and the branch. If you let every single one of those grow, your plant is wasting all its energy on 1,000 different directions instead of pumping that energy into the clusters of fruit we want. It's like trying to finish 10 different projects at once. Usually, none of them turn out great. When we prune those suckers correctly, we're telling the plant exactly where to put its fuel. And let's talk about the surface watering habit. A lot of folks just splash the top of the dirt for 30 seconds and think they're done. But those roots, they're deep. When you only wet the surface, the roots stay near the top to find moisture. Then, the afternoon sun hits, the top inch of soil cooks, and your plant wilts instantly. We want deep, resilient roots that can handle a hot afternoon while we're inside having a cold glass of lemonade. I'm telling you this because I want you to realize it's not your fault. The big companies want you to keep buying more fixes and more sprays. But the real secret to that massive 80 tomato harvest is just understanding how the plant thinks. We're going to stop overcomplicating things and start working with nature. By avoiding these traps, you're already ahead of 90% of home gardeners. You're not just planting a seed, you're building a system that's going to feed your family all summer long. Imagine the look on your neighbor's face when they see your vines sagging under the weight of all that fruit, while theirs are just green bushes. It feels good, doesn't it? That's the backyard freedom we're talking about. Now that we know what not to do, I'm going to share the actual discovery. The accidental trick I stumbled upon that changed my watering routine forever and triggered that explosion of growth. It's so simple, you'll probably laugh, but the results speak for themselves. Are you ready to see the how behind the magic? Listen, friend, I've got to be honest with you. About 2 years ago, I was sitting right here in this very spot, looking at my garden, and I was ready to throw in the towel. I had spent so much money on fancy fertilizers, those blue crystals everyone says you need, and I was out here every single morning sweating my heart out. And for what? I was getting maybe 5 or 6 decent tomatoes per plant, and they weren't even that sweet. I felt like a failure. I felt like I was just wasting my family's time and money. But then, something happened that changed everything, and it happened completely by accident. It was a Tuesday, and it was one of those scorching summer days where the air just feels heavy. My neighbor, an old-timer named Mr. Henderson, who's been gardening since before I was born, walked over while I was dragging the hose around. He saw me looking frustrated and said, "You're giving them a bath, kid, but you aren't giving them a meal." That hit me hard. He told me that the secret wasn't in a store-bought bag, it was in how I prepared the water itself. I started experimenting based on what he told me. I went back to the basic stuff you and I both have in our kitchens right now. I took a 5-gallon bucket, filled it with water, and threw in a handful of high-quality compost, some crushed eggshells for calcium, and a couple of old banana peels for that potassium kick. I let it sit for about 48 hours, stirring it whenever I walked by. I called it my backyard tea. But the real aha moment came when I combined that tea with a deep root delivery system. Instead of just splashing the top of the dirt, I took some old PVC pipes I had laying around. You can use empty soda bottles too, buddy. And I buried them about 6 inches deep right next to the main stem. I poured my tea directly into those pipes. Within a week, I swear to you, I saw a difference that blew my mind. The leaves didn't just look green, they looked vibrant, like they were glowing with health. But the real payoff? The blossoms. Usually, half my flowers would just fall off. We call that blossom drop. But with this method, every single flower seemed to set fruit. I started seeing these massive clusters forming. Not just 2 or 3 tomatoes, but groups of 8, 10, 12. I remember calling my wife out to the garden. I said, "Honey, you have to see this." We stood there counting. One vine had 15, then 30, then 40. By the time that plant was done for the season, we had harvested over 80 tomatoes from one single vine. 80. I had never seen anything like it in my life. We were literally giving bags of tomatoes away to everyone on the block because we couldn't eat them fast enough. My kids were eating them like apples right off the vine, still warm from the sun. That's when I realized I had finally cracked the code. That summer, we saved so much money, it was ridiculous. If you go to the store and buy organic, vine-ripened tomatoes, you're looking at what, $4 or $5 a pound? When you're pulling 80 tomatoes off a single plant and you have 5 or 6 plants going, buddy, you're looking at hundreds of dollars staying in your pocket instead of going to the grocery store. My grocery bill dropped significantly that month, and the best part was the quality. The flavor of a tomato that has been fed real food through its roots is something you just can't buy at the supermarket. It's sweet, it's tangy, and it tastes like a real victory. I'm sharing this because I want you to feel that same rush. I want you to stand in your backyard, look at your plants, and feel like a total pro. This discovery wasn't about being a genius, it was just about stumbling upon a way to treat the plant like a living thing instead of a machine. So, here's the proof in the pudding. I've been using this deep tea method for 3 seasons now, and it hasn't failed me once. Whether it's a rainy summer or a dry one, this watering trick keeps the plants stable and productive. You're going to love how simple it is once we get into the exact measurements. It's the kind of thing that makes you smile every time you walk out with your harvest basket. I'm so glad you're here with me on this journey. We're moving from the discovery phase into the real nitty-gritty of the how-to, so you can start this today. Are you ready to see how we put all of this into action? I want you to take a second and really look back at where we started, buddy. Think about those Saturday mornings at the grocery store, standing in that fluorescent lit aisle, staring at those pale, pinkish, vine-ripened tomatoes that are stacked like tennis balls in plastic containers. You know, the ones that cost 4, 5, maybe $6 a pound depending on the season. You pick them up, they're hard as a rock, they have absolutely no smell, and when you get them home and slice them up, they taste like, well, they taste like nothing. It's like eating wet cardboard. I remember that frustration so clearly. I remember looking at my receipt and seeing $40 spent on just a few bags of produce that would barely last my family through Tuesday. It felt like I was stuck in this endless, expensive cycle. I was working hard to earn money only to hand it right back to a store for food that didn't even make us happy. And the worst part, when I tried to grow my own to escape that cycle, I'd end up at the big box garden center, spending another $50 on miracle sprays and fancy gadgets that promised the world but delivered nothing but yellow leaves and disappointment. I know exactly how you feel when you look at a struggling garden and think, is this even worth it? I've been there, standing in the heat, feeling like I was just pouring money into the dirt. That cycle of disappointment. The expensive trap of bad food and failed gardens is what we are breaking today, once and for all. We're not just growing tomatoes anymore, friend. We're growing our own independence. We're reclaiming that feeling of walking out into our own backyards and knowing that our kitchen will never run out. Think about the math for a second. If one vine gives you 80 tomatoes and you've got just 4 vines in your yard, that's 320 tomatoes. In general, that's more than most families can even eat in a season. Imagine the look on your face when you realize you haven't put tomatoes on your grocery list for 3 months straight. Imagine the pride of bringing a bowl of those sun-warmed, deep red beauties into the house and telling your family, "I grew these for us. We did this." That is the real payoff. That is the backyard freedom I've been talking about. But I'm not just here to give you a recipe and send you on your way. I want to challenge you. Don't just watch this and think, that's a cool idea. I want you to go out there this weekend and pick just one vine. Just one. Apply the deep tea method we talked about. Put in that PVC pipe or that buried bottle. Start feeding those roots directly. I want you to witness that explosion of growth for yourself, because once you see those first clusters of 10 or 12 tomatoes forming on a single branch, you're never going to look at a grocery store the same way again. You're going to realize that the power to feed your family with the best food on earth was in your hands all along. We've gone through the maintenance, we've dodged the common mistakes, and we've uncovered the old-timer secret that changed my life. Now, it's your turn. We are in this together, and I want to hear about your success. I want to hear about the day you hit your 80 tomato mark. Before I let you go back to your garden, I want to say thank you. Thank you for sitting here with me, for sharing this coffee, and for being part of this Horta Sem Segredo family. It means the world to me to know that there are people like you out there reclaiming their backyards and finding joy in the dirt again. If this helped you feel a little more confident today, if it made you smile or gave you hope for your harvest, do me a huge favor, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep growing together. And hey, drop a comment below and let me know what city you're growing in. I try to answer as many of you as I can because your stories are what keep me going. Now, get out there, grab your watering can, and let's make this the best harvest your family has ever seen. You got this, buddy. I'll see you in the next video.